You're listening to Food Trucks in Babylon, a Western Seminary podcast with Dr. Todd Miles and Dr. Patrick Schreiner. Listen as they discuss matters of faith, theology, and culture in a post-Christian world.
Hello, this is Todd.
And this is Patrick.
And we are both professors here at Western Seminary in Portland, Oregon, also heavily involved in our local churches.
That's right. And we've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time here at Western, partially because we know there's a dearth of podcasts right now. There's not a ton out there, right, Todd?
That's right.
I mean, nobody has any podcasts to listen to.
Finally, you have something to listen to.
Finally, you have a theological podcast from those at Western Seminary that you can now listen to. So we're excited to release what we're calling Food Trucks in Babylon.
Now, how do we get that name?
You know, the story is not entirely clear, at least the history of it, but I do remember being in a marketing meeting, and I feel like we pitched the idea. One of us did. I don't remember who it was. Yep. And that everyone kind of got a frown on their face. I was like yeah, what? This is not going to happen.
Shouldn't Western Seminary be in there somewhere?
Exactly. But then as we all kind of thought about it, we thought, you know, this is growing on us. It's something that really fits who we are in terms of who we are at Western and where we live.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Obviously in Oregon, one of the least churched states in the country. It's usually in the top 2 or 3 of that highly prolific category there. And this is kind of the petri dish of postmodern thought.
That's right.
That weird things are trotted out.
Keep Portland weird.
Yeah, and sometimes they take and they make their way around the country, and other times they don't. And it doesn't seem to be obvious at the time, like what's a really, really stupid idea. Some things I think are dumb just make their way across.
Right.
Some things I think are just foolish and evil, and next thing you know, they've made their way across the country as well.
Right. So this podcast is going to be focused on living faithfully in a post-Christian world, which is part of the reason why we called it Food Trucks in Babylon. Babylon is that kind of representative city for what it looks like to live in exile. So what does it look like to live faithfully in this post-Christian time? But why do we say food trucks?
Well, one of the great benefits to living in Portland, Oregon is the food scene, in particular the food truck food scene. We have what we call food truck pods that you walk into the middle of them, and there is just a veritable smorgasbord of choices. Choices.
Yep. So many choices that I have to get on Yelp to figure out what I need to get.
Yeah. I mean, you're like right next to one food truck that's barbecue will be Indian, right next to Vietnamese, right next to it's just incredible.
And in some way, we're playing on that because, number one, we're going to talk some about food. We're not going to be food critics, but we're going to talk about food, but we're also going to talk about a variety of topics.
That's right.
And so how to live faithfully in this post-Christian world in terms of faith, theology, and culture. So what are some of the episodes that we're going to have in this first season?
Well, we're going to think about some theological topics. We're going to think about the atonement, about the descent of Christ into Hades. So those are kind of the theological things that we'll be thinking about.
That's right. And we're also going to do some more practical ones in terms of marijuana and the church. If you live in a state that has it legalized, how do you address that issue ethically? Right. And we're going to talk about tough topics like suicide. Pastorally, how do you deal with these type of things? What does suicide prevention look like in a church? And we're going to deal with topics like spiritual warfare. What is spiritual warfare? How do you engage in that sort of thing?
Yeah. Is there a demon behind every bush? Maybe 2 or 3.
That's right.
Or maybe not at all. We'll see.
And then we're also going to do some tough texts with Todd, problem passages with myself, Patrick, and we'll look at just some things that are difficult to interpret and try to walk through those things with you.
Yeah. Really, the kind of things that we enjoy talking about. That's probably the common denominator to the entire thing.
That's right. Here. Well, we know there's a lot of podcasts out there, and you're probably subscribed to many of those. However, we'd love it if you subscribe to our podcast, Food Trucks in Babylon.
And join us as we think about how to live faithfully in a post-Christian world.